All right, let's dive right in, shall we? We're going to get to the bottom of a question that's, well, a little bit fascinating and, let's be honest, a little bit terrifying. Hollywood has given us its answer for years, but today we're going to look at what science actually says. So let's just ask it straight up. Do these amazing, powerful predators of the ocean actually look at us and see lunch? It's a huge common fear, and we are going to unpack it right now.
First things first, we've got to talk about the biggest shark in the room, and that's Hollywood. To find the truth, you have to separate the movie monster from the actual animal. Because trust me, there is a massive difference between the shark on the big screen and the one swimming out there in the ocean.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. We've all seen the movies, you know? That music starts playing, you see the fin. It's this incredibly powerful, scary image that's been burned into our brains for decades.
But then you have reality. You've got experts, like the awesome Dani Washington, who get in the water with sharks all the time. She's dived with bull sharks, which, by the way, are considered some of the most aggressive. And you know what happened? They just swam on by. They pretty much ignored her. And that's our first really big clue that maybe the movies don't have the whole story.
So, okay, if the experts who swim with them for a living aren't worried, how big is the risk for the rest of us, really? Well, that brings us to a really fun and kind of weird comparison I like to call the vending machine test.
Let's just put the main fact right out there. It's surprisingly simple. Sharks very, very rarely hurt people. I mean, think about it. Millions of us are swimming and surfing every single day. If sharks were actually hunting us, you'd know it. The numbers would be off the charts. And that leads to this wild statistic. You are, literally, more likely to get hurt by a vending machine falling on you than you are to be bitten by a shark. I know, it sounds like a joke, right? But it's true, and it does a fantastic job of putting the real level of risk into perspective.
All right, so we've pretty much established that we are not on the menu, but bites do happen. They're super rare, but they happen. So that just opens up a brand new mystery. If they don't want to eat us, then why bite at all?
Yeah, so this is the central question the scientists have been trying to figure out for a long, long time. What is actually going on in a shark's brain during one of those rare, scary moments?
For a long time, the number one theory was actually pretty simple. It was all just a big misunderstanding. A classic case of mistaken identity. And you know, at first glance, it makes a lot of sense. So the idea goes something like this. Imagine a great white shark, deep down, looking up at the surface. It sees the dark shape of a surfer on a board, paddling with their hands and feet. To the shark, that looks an awful lot like a seal, which is one of their favorite foods. So it's an accident, a simple mistake. Seems plausible, right? Well, it seemed plausible for a while. But the more we learn about sharks, the more scientists are thinking, you know what? These animals are probably way too good at their jobs to make such a basic mistake.
And here's why. A shark's senses are like something out of a sci-fi movie. Their eyesight is as good as ours, even in murky water. Their whole body is lined with these pores that can feel the tiniest splash or movement from hundreds of feet away. And maybe the craziest part? They can sense the tiny electrical fields our own muscles make when we move. They are incredibly sophisticated hunters.
So if it's not a mistake, then what is it? Well, that brings us to a newer and frankly more interesting theory. It's a simple idea with a simple name. Mouths for hands.
Think about it from a human perspective for a second. When you see something new, something you've never seen before, what do? You reach out. You pick it out with your hands. You feel it. You turn it over. You investigate it.
Well, sharks are smart, curious creatures too. And when they come across something weird and unfamiliar in their world, like say a person on a surfboard, they also want to know what it is. But they have one big problem: no hands. So they investigate using the best tool they have, their mouth.
And that is the whole idea behind what's now called a curiosity bite. It's not an attack. It's not driven by hunger. It's an act of exploration. The shark gives a quick test bite, almost immediately realizes, oh, this isn't food, and let's go, and moves on.
Now, we have to be really, really clear on this next point. Just because the reason for the bite isn't to attack, that doesn't mean it isn't incredibly dangerous. A shark's test nibble involves immense power and rows of razor-sharp teeth. So even one of those exploratory bites can, and does, cause very serious injuries.
So after all this, where does that leave us? Well, it suggests that maybe we need to shift our thinking. Maybe the main emotion we should feel towards sharks isn't fear, but instead a really deep and well-informed respect.
And how do we put that respect into practice? Well, first,
Don't let this stop you from enjoying the ocean. It's one of the most amazing places on Earth. But when you go, just be smart. Be respectful. Remember, you are a guest in their home. Learn the right skills, like how to swim well. And if you get the chance, go with experts, guides who really understand the local wildlife, and how to share the space safely.
So, in the end, it turns out sharks aren't the mindless movie monsters we thought they were. They're ancient, intelligent, complex animals just trying to figure out their world. And realizing that kind of flips the whole script, doesn't it? It leaves us with a much bigger and way more important question. Now that we're starting to understand them, what are we going to do to better protect them and their home?